Welcome to Trek Table, your Sunday weekly podcast holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown,
women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies. Hey, what's up? I'm your host, Dayla, and today I am holding Trek space for folks like Book, who had the best of intentions and all the reasons and still made a big mistake. Holding space for all that accountability.
I am your co-host, Claudia, and today I'm holding Trek space for trusting in a friend who can check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Maya Mama, and I'm holding Trek space for that moment when you forget what you're doing. It happens to everyone, or it's time travel.
and hi. Hi, I'm your co host, Marie Reine, and I'm holding Trek Space for making the first move.
Hi, I'm your guest, Malika, and I'm holding Trek space for all the colored girls who entered the academy and then were told they weren't enough.
Welcome to the Trek Table. We start with acknowledging that our teams for Trek Table are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, Chumash, Quiche, Ohlone, Puyallup, Pawtucket, and Massachusetts people. We are grateful to the Indigenous stewards of these lands, the ancestors who have come before, those who are here now, and those who have yet to come. I invite our listeners and viewers to be in this acknowledgement of the lands that you are on now. Okay, let's take a deep breath in and out.
We want to say thank you all for joining us today on the Trek Table as we hold Trek space for women of color. Here in our digital audience space on the Trek Table YouTube channel, some of us are live in the chat with you. This is a previously recorded episode. We're so happy to be here with you, and we want to say thanks always to our friends listening on the podcast. Hey, everybody.
Our opening track for this episode is titled Chicana Skies by the band Quetzal off of their album Quetzal. You'll be hearing several tracks by Quetzal throughout this episode of Trek Table. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes, and we want to welcome everybody to episode 42 of the Trek Table. We're so excited to have you all be here. Thanks for showing up for this conversation with women of color. We've assembled today to talk about season 4, episode 9 of Star Trek Discovery. One of the final 3 episodes of this season 4. We're super excited to talk about it. We also are happy to welcome back to the table Marie Reine-Velez. Welcome back, Marie. We've been missing you. So happy you were able to be here. And we as a full Trek Table are super excited to welcome our very first woman of color scientist to the Trek Table. Welcome to Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL. We're so happy you are here. We're going to meet you a little bit more, greet you a little bit more. But I just want to say welcome to everybody in the viewing, in the chat, in the podcast, at the table. We're so glad that you are joining us today at the Trek Table. We have a great episode. We're going to dig deep into this episode, Rubicons, season 4, episode 9 of Star Trek Discovery, written by Alan McElroy and directed by Andy Armaganian. I believe that's how you say that. This episode, we're going to jump into complicated relationships. So much things are happening in this episode. I'm going to give a spoiler alert. If you have not watched all the way to season 4, episode 9, we're going to spoil everything. We're going to talk about it all. So we're going to hold space for you and say, come back after you watched it if you don't want the spoilers, or if you want to hear what we're thinking and then go watch, we support that as well. So spoiler zone in full effect. Just want to say that. And today we're going to talk about the complicated relationships in this episode, the choices that characters are being asked to make. And we're also going to explore this scientific idea and property of organic semiconductors with our guest, Malika. And we're going to think about, is that happening on Star Trek Discovery? So super big discussions today, lots of fun things. And we're so excited that you all are joining us. So thank you so much. And we're getting ready to talk about these things.
Now, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're a listener and a fan and appreciate that Trek Table brings you different perspectives and points of view, we invite you to continue to support this space by visiting the Trek Table Patreon.
We are so glad that you are joining this Black, Indigenous, Women of Color conversation. Hello and welcome. So that we can build with each other, how do you enter this conversation? Like, as a Star Trek fan, are you Star Trek curious? Are you a newbie? Are you an OG Trekkie? Star Trek family? Star Trek fam? Trek zaddy? Trek baby? Let us know in the chat.
Welcome back to the Trek Table, episode number 42. All right, what's up? We're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 9, Rubicon. We're going to break this episode down in a couple of different ways, as we like to do here at the Trek Table. Claudia's here. They've got Trek Table questions. We've got some questions to ask you in the chat, and those of us assembled. Friends on the podcast, too. We're also going to welcome our guest, Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL, in our guest spotlight today. We're going to do some disco recaps and see what's happening in this plot. Marie's here. She's got questions. Claudia's got that new section, fashion freestyle. Maia Mama's here with disco design. I'm going to help us braid it all together with Thematix. We've got a signal boost, final thoughts, gratitude, and more. We are so excited for you all to join us today as we continue this practice and this ritual of sharing space to think about, talk about Star Trek with this panel assembled. Last two bits of our business before we jump into these actual conversations, we want to check in and say hi to who's at the table. And our practice is to ask everybody to go around, say your name, your pronouns, your visual description, any access check-in you want to share with us. And then, like Claudia asked us right before that break, how do you identify as a Star Trek fan? Claudia, since you prompted us in that way, can I ask you to go first and model?
Sure. Hi there, I'm Claudia. Gender pronouns, they, theirs. You can also use she, hers. Visual description, African American woman, big brown afro, sit with a Star Trek, a red Star Trek shirt with like rainbow trails coming off of it for my Alphabet Mafia. And I am sitting in front of the original deck of the Enterprise. I am disabled, so that means that every once in a while I'm gonna have a flare and I might pull a face or my body might react dramatically. That has nothing to do with the awesome Star Trek conversation. If I pull a face, that's just because one of my muscles is pulling me. Other than that, all of my access needs are met because I've got my big Janeway sized cup of coffee, y'all. And I self identify as a generational Star Trek lover, passing it down to the children, got it from my mama. And I'm poly sci fi fantasy. All of them, everything. I'll watch everything.
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you, Claudia. Maya Mama, can I ask you to go next and check in?
Yes, I am Maya Mama. I use she, her pronouns. I am a youngish looking middle aged black woman. I'm wearing my science officer uniform and I have a headband with insignia on it. I have some gold eye makeup in honor of the return of Non and red lipstick. I also have these like purpley curls and these ears that I am trying to get to, cooperate and stay on. But aren't they cute? They're fun. I am from a generational Star Trek family and I identify as Omni Sci Fi.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you. I appreciate the ears. I hope they stay on as well. We're all about all the fashion. So thank you. I'll go next. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dayla. My pronouns are she, he, they, and Dayla. I'm a Trek fan from 30 years ago in my life, watching reruns of original series. I would say Next Generation is really that place that I got hooked, and my collaborative experience of watching Star Trek with other friends of color and talking about it. So I answer that way. I identify currently as a disco head. I super love Star Trek Discovery, and I'm so happy we're here for it and we get to have these combos. I am a poly sci-fi, but disco is my primary sci-fi love right now. But we are having some dialogue because I'm trying to decide if I'm going to rewatch some other franchises. We talked last week about maybe a Farscape rewatch, so that would be me. Marie Ren, welcome back. Can I invite you to, hey, say hi to us, check in. How you doing today?
Yay. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends. Good to be back and good to see you all. Marie or Marie Ren is how I go by. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Filipino woman with a cisgendered woman with light brown skin. I have short hair, dark roundish glasses. I have a round face, and I'm wearing my disco navy shirt on with also like a kind of tinted raisiny lip. And my access needs are met today. And I consider myself like, today I'm going to describe myself as like a Trek teen where I feel like I know everything, but I know I don't. I know I don't. So, and and then I generally just love science fiction and cool sciencey, spacey things. And I'm just happy to be talking about Star Trek with y'all today.
Marie Ren, we're so glad you're back. Marie Ren, we're so glad you're here. And so excited to talk Star Trek today. And I'm excited for us to talk Star Trek today with our special guest, Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL. Welcome, Malika. So excited to have you here. Just to introduce you to our audience, Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL is the Associate Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences and Professor of Chemistry and Materials at Boston University. Yes, so excited. Her research focuses on the design and synthesis of new organic semiconductors. And just as you might know, to refresh us, organic semiconductors are organic materials capable of transmitting or conducting electric charges. Malika, you bring a unique insight to us as a table because you're in the science of the science thing. So we're super excited about that. And we're super excited that through your personal connection to Luz Minda, one of our other executive producers, that we were able to connect with you and welcome you today. So we just want to say hi, welcome. Thanks for being here. Can we invite you to participate in this practice and have you check in, tell folks about yourself, pronouns, visual description, access check-in, and then that fun question, how do you identify as a Star Trek fan?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. In terms of visual description, I will follow the lead. I am also a youngish looking African American woman, caramel skin. I have gone with a very, very modest makeup look, very minimalist look, except for a very dark lip. I've got dark, straight hair parted up the middle. I was trying to channel my inner Vulcan vibe. So very minimalist appearance. Got the black on, got my jet black hair parted back, just giving inner Vulcan vibes was my goal. She, her pronouns is what I utilize. And then how do I identify as a Trekkie? You know, I would actually say I was baptized into Star Trek with the original, with my parents. Watched a lot of the other things, Voyager, Next Generation, and then just kind of lay low. So I would describe myself today as a born again Trekkie, revitalizing the spirit of discovery. It's just been brought back to life in Discovery. And so, but I am a sci-fi fan, happy to talk more about all my other things in terms of I love sci-fi. It's just good to just get lost in another reality with all that's going on today. Access needs are great so far. Expecting snow in Boston, so we'll see if I can get around later. But right now, everything's great.
Amazing. Yay, hooray, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have you. And now this final bit of business, everybody. We're about to jump into these conversations, but before we do, we just want to make sure we set some Trek table agreements. So we want to start and say welcome to all who enter. Whether you're a newbie or you were someone raised in a Star Trekking family, welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or as part of your self care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek Space.
Trek Space is for Black, Brown, Indigenous femmes of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness of the Star Trek multiverse.
Trek Table is also a space for allies to come, engage, and explore as well. This is an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we're all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand that we will disagree, and that's actually part of the fun, but there's enough violence out there in the world. Let's keep our phasers on stun.
Great. So let's go ahead and breathe in all of those agreements. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Thank you.
Here we go with Trek Table question number 1, posed to the Trek Table assembled here. And I hope y'all are out there listening to the podcast and answering the questions. Surprise! Non is back. Commander, Non is back. Now here's the question. I was real surprised. Who else were you expecting somebody different to send as a second pair of eyes and decision making for Michael? Who else were they going to send?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Here we are with Trek Table question number 1. Surprise! Non is back, Commander. Non is back. We were all surprised. Who else could they have sent besides Non to be a second pair of eyes and decision making for Michael? Let me start with you, Maya Mama, because like they were like somebody's coming, and then they were like opening up the door. Who were you expecting to come through?
I was actually expecting Non as, but if it had been somebody else, I think Tilly would have been a good choice. It's obvious that even when she doesn't want to, she makes the hard choices, the tough choices, and that she views duty and care for the whole above care for the individual.
That makes a lot of sense. Marie Ren, what about you? Who did you think might be sent other than Commander Non?
Um, it's funny. I also thought I also was like, it's Non coming back. But for the sake of interesting people to bring back, I was like, who would be cool? And I think I would like to see Sahil come back from season 3.
I'm so sorry, Sahil. Who was Sahil?
Sahil was the person who was not an officer who was like taking space up on that space station that where
Oh
they were able to
With the
yeah.
find
flag.
with the flag, the first person that Book and Burnham
All right,
connected with,
Marie
who is
Ren
sort of from the Federation world.
for the
Yeah.
win. That is such a good suggestion. I would have loved if he came back. That would have been amazing. All right,
Yeah.
Malika. I know that you're not super familiar with Discovery, like every single character, but like who else could they have sent besides Commander Non?
Well, I tell you, I'm just gonna go old school. And if I had to make a very difficult decision without emotion, I would actually want 7 of 9 by my side.
Oh.
Oh,
Mhm.
y'all,
Mhm,
that reminds me.
mhm,
Why didn't they
mhm.
just empower Zora? Zora's a computer. Zora might be able to make those hard decisions. I don't know. She's still figuring out her emotions. You know, she's a ship.
Mhm.
She's figuring this stuff out. Dayla, what do you think? Who could they have sent besides Commander Non?
I agree with all the Tilly votes. I would say, in the same way we got to see President Rillick on the Discovery, it made me wonder, would Vance ever show up and hang out and try to like be there as the backup? Like, I know it's super complicated. The other person I want to mention, another character from season 3 in the beginning when we first arrived to the Federate to Starfleet, is, I believe she's Lieutenant Commander Willa, woman of color, also a security uniform, kind of like what except it was the dress gray. So for folks
Oh
who might
yeah,
remember, that woman of color with the ponytail, she went with
yeah.
Burnham and them on the very first she went with them as their chaperone on a mission that I can't think of right now. But I'm thinking I miss her. I was like, where is she in Starfleet Command? She was Vance's right hand, and we haven't seen her all
Yes.
season.
And
So I miss her.
low key, I thought they were setting her up to possibly be like a replacement since Non was like, I'm gonna go check with my family. I thought like maybe they were
Mm-hmm.
replacing her. I'm y'all, I thought they'd sent Kovach, what's his name? The
Kovich.
doctor?
Mm-hmm.
He's like
Kovich.
he's cold blooded. Like he was like with Culber, he was just like, yeah, no, get your stuff together, get some therapy. You got to figure this out. So I feel like he would have been good in this situation too. That said, it was awesome to have Commander Non back. Audience members, I hope you responded in the chat to let us know who you thought would be there besides Non. And that brings us to the close of Trek Table question number 1.
Trick Table is brought to you in part by Outside In Theater. Outside In is an evolving force in equitable and transformative storytelling. For more information about Outside In Theater, check out their website at outsideintheater.org.
Yes, yes, and welcome back to Trek Table episode number 42. We have this special segment today, our Trek Table guest spotlight with our guest today, Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL. Welcome back, welcome again to the show. We're super excited and honored to have you here. As we've mentioned at the top, you're our first official woman of color scientist. A lot of us are theater maker, artist, organizer folks, scholars of more humanities-based work. So just super excited to have you here. And before we jump into this Trek Table conversation and we talk about this Discovery episode, I just wanted to give our listeners and our viewers, our table, a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
We have read your bio, but how would you describe your daily life as a scientist?
It's probably not at all what people imagine. When you think about a scientist, most people think we're running around with like white jackets and goggles and doing things.
Yes.
Oh, there is a lot of that. There is a lot of that, but it depends upon where you are. Now that I am at the faculty level, I supervise the people who do that. My student, if they see me put on a white coat, they're going, "Oh my God, she's gonna touch something and move it from the way we like it." So they're in the lab doing the day to day experiments. But I'm more like the maestro. You guys said you're in the theater space. I'm the behind the scenes person who's conducting everything. I'm making the suggestions, making the recommendations, analyzing the data, raising the money to keep the projects
Ooh.
going, supervising the
Mm.
staff, writing up the papers. So I do a lot of that behind the scenes, but it's all grounded in science. And I think the thing that even when you're more behind the scenes versus physically in the lab, and I do miss that part where you're physically, I do chemistry, and when you're making something that's never been made before and like materializes in your hands, it's a great feeling. And so, even though I don't have that, my students do that and they run to me with the data, and it still feels great when we conceptualize something, draw it up, and then make it, and then find out it does exactly what we predicted it to do or expected it to do. And that realization of a dream is always fun. And even if you're making successful progress toward a goal in the field, it's exciting when you have a new discovery. So it never gets old. It never gets old.
Discovery and Star Trek have always given me the vicarious opportunity to be a scientist by watching all these characters that I care about and their scientific work. We read in your bio you study organic semiconductors. I'm wondering for the layperson who may not be as familiar with that kind of science, how do we help explain to friends who don't know what that is?
So what we're doing in my line of research is we're trying to design new materials, and atoms make up everything. If you haven't learned that watching Star Trek, from dilithium on, atoms make up everything. And our periodic table of elements tells us what are all the elemental species that exist, and we have to combine them to make everything and anything we want. The most abundant element in the periodic table is carbon. You often hear us say, Earth is a carbon-based life form. Carbon is our most abundant element. And so we have tons of it, and it makes up most of our molecules, living things, etc. But on the other hand, we have non-living or inorganic elements, and a lot of those are what we would term semi-conducting elements. It's by virtue that they have certain special properties, just like some of the elements that they fixate on Star Trek. And those elements are limited. And so I think about like the DMA mining the whole galaxy to try to get like something that's very rare. Some of these elements that we need that are powering our technologies, our cell phones in particular, displays, laptops, are not that abundant. And when it was just a few people had a phone, it was no problem. But as we look at millions upon millions and billions of people wanting these technologies, scientists are going, we're probably going to run out. So what do we do next? So either figure out new technologies based on new materials, or recycling as both sides of the coin. And so my lab is fixating on trying to make new materials to use in our technologies to replace those that are rare in supply, so that we don't have to run out or if the price goes really high. So that's kind of a goal of anybody who's working in the area of organic semiconductors. How can we make carbon-based materials to fill that gap?
And I will,
Wow.
yes, it just resonates
Wow,
in
that's
all the
awesome.
resources we've been talking about in this episode or in this season of Discovery.
Yes.
Yeah, Claudia, do you have a question?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a million questions. I did think of you in a white coat with like beakers. I have a very romantic and non-reality based vision of what scientists are, and you have
Hmm.
confirmed that. So you're saving the world. You're figuring out how to save us from all the problems. I'm very excited. I've actually been very concerned about our limited resources. So just thank you for doing the work you're doing. I heard today that you got a very big promotion. Amazing. Now we've been tracking Michael Burnham's journey this entire time, and when Michael Burnham got the promotion to be captain, we were like, "Yeah, Michael! Yeah, Michael!" So, are you captain now? Are you captain of the university?
I'm not captain of the university, but I would say that it's definitely a level of. I would say I was probably the number two, and now I'm now the number one. I was an associate professor, and now I am a professor. So in the university stratosphere, some may argue if it's the dean that's the number one, and I'm now the number two, and so on. But whatever, I feel pretty good, and I'm excited about my new title change, as I should be.
Congratulations. I can't wait for you to just be in front of your classrooms being like, let's fly.
That's so awesome. Full professorship, which is amazing, and all the kudos because you are awesome and have gotten that. Okay, I know that you're also a newbie to Discovery, and I am one too. As like I actually jumped into Discovery watching season 3. Like I didn't even start with season 1, and I've heard that so that you've also had a bit of a scattered introduction, and I'm wondering how you're finding Discovery.
I am loving Discovery, actually. I mean, what's not to love about Discovery? If you like Star Trek, and it's true to the formula of Star Trek. It's got all the basic elements you would expect for Star Trek. And then miraculously, we find out that the future is female, that they have replaced all the usual suspects with just such positive female energy and just, in the lead roles and the supporting cast. And I'm just excited to soak it all in. I'm loving it.
That's awesome.
Malika, we're super excited to have you here with us. Thanks for giving us a chance to kind of ask you some questions. As we keep moving through the show, we will be asking questions to our friends in the chat. If you have questions for Malika, we want to invite you to drop those questions for us. And we'll make sure to share them with Malika and see if we can get some of those answers. Knowing all these things, we're super excited to have you here at the table, Malika. So let's jump into this episode with you, shall we?
Yes.
And with this song Matanzas by Quetzal, we know it's time for our disco recap. So the game is simple. We collectively have 2.5 minutes to tell chunklets of the plot along the major storylines for this week's show.
Trek Table, get ready. We are going to retell the major storylines for Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 9, Rubicon, written by Alan B. McElroy and directed by Andy Armaganian.
Okay, Ariana, can we have 2.5 minutes on the timer?
Incoming transmission.
Okay, everyone. So we just start out with like Captain Burnham, just Captain burning him everything up, and everything's fine. But everyone like expects her to be like irrational and like really emotional. But she was raised on Vulcan. Also, here comes Nan, and we're so excited to see her. And she's supposed to be there to like help Michael not be really emotional, but like seriously, she's way more emotional, and Michael has to take time out of her own trauma to take care of Nan.
Okay, and then so they want to approach Book's ship, and so they can't do that on the ship of Discovery, so they have to send a little shuttle with Saru and Culber, Bryce and Reese, and to infiltrate somehow. And so they're going, and Bryce and Reese have this conversation about what Book has done, and they both have these feelings about he's like should we really be doing this? Yes, we should. He's broken protocol. But what's right, what's wrong, everyone has different feelings. And so as they're trying to suss this out, the shuttle is attacked by some illegal defense weapon that Tarka has installed, and they're about to be killed, which is like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then they're able to be extracted just in time.
And on the ship, there's discord between Book and Tarka because it's evident that their methods are not in agreement. Book is very disturbed that Tarka even put that thing on the ship and was willing to go to these extremes to carry out the mission. And then they realized that while they were originally united in this goal to destroy the DMA, that their methodologies and goals are quite different. And there's lots of discord in the book. And one of my favorite comments is when Tarka says, I realized you had expected utility. Basically, he used them up, and now he was ready to be done with him because he was able to carry out his mission. And such a analogy to life.
Cold-blooded. All right, so there's Saru. Saru is feeling stressed, so he called up his girl Trina. She a president of VAR. Be like, hey girl. She like, hey, let's meditate together or whatever. But also, if you really want to relax, let's have dinner. Saru is fully freaked. He's like, we can't do that. I'm not sure about that. He goes to Culber. He's like, I couldn't do that. I shouldn't be doing that. And Culber's like, oh honey, just kiss the girl. Huh? How'd I do? Yeah.
Good. 5. Oh. They're just so proud of us. They're
I
so
know.
proud.
We're so good
Yeah.
at this.
Well, and if you're looking for an act by act breakdown, we recommend Kennedy Allen's recap at Women at Warp. Links are on the screen and in your Trek Table show notes.
Marie has questions.
What does this mean?
Marie has questions.
What's happening? She did what? She's from where? She killed who?
Yay! I miss that song. I haven't heard it in such a long
Love it.
time.
Yes,
And
us
so
too,
welcome.
us too.
And I just saw my niece yesterday who wrote this song. So yay. Okay. So welcome to Marie Has Questions. We want to model in this section that it is okay to ask questions, especially for a Star Trek teen or a newbie or a Star Trek light person like me, with a topic as big as Star Trek. I also want to share space with our guest, Malika, who is also a self-identified disco newbie, or actually a born again Trek fan. And I have my friends Maya Mama and Claudia and Dela here to answer as many questions as we have in 2 minutes. So we have our timer set. Okay, let's begin.
Incoming transmission.
Okay, so I somehow missed that Tarka is from an alternative universe, or no?
No.
Okay.
Maya Mama, go ahead.
No, he's just like an edgelord who thinks that that the Terran Empire is just like way cooler, and he's like, if I was a Terran, then they'd like worship me.
Also,
He's
basically,
stupid.
also he had some kind of dramatic backstory with somebody where this person was like, the way we'll escape this torture thing is that we'll go to another world. So his big dream is to go to another universe to be with his friend, who he hopes escaped there. I don't know if I buy Turka's entire story.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't buy it.
All right,
Okay,
more questions.
Malika.
Okay, so I know they sprinted, and I also hopped around in my episode watching, and I know they've sprinted ahead into the future. And it's evident from these storylines that people have a past. But my question is, when exactly did Book and Burnham meet up and hook up? Like, where did that happen?
May I?
Yes,
All right.
go,
Yes,
Claudia,
go.
So Michael comes from the future because she's trying to save everybody with the Red Angel suit. She gets there early. She's like in the future for a year by herself, and like she just hooks up with this cool black dude who like saves animals and is pretty chill. And they have amazing adventures. And I would love to see a short that describes all the adventures they had for a full year. So like when Discovery came back, it was like a moment of her trying to figure out, do I even want to be back on this ship, or have I just like fully committed to this old lifestyle, this new lifestyle I got with Book?
Wow.
And I would say if you're looking for that meet cute, it happens season 3, episode 1, right away. He's actually literally the first person she bumps into in this time.
It's very romantic. They
Marie,
like-
last question.
Okay, very, very last question. So EMP charge that the shuttle shut off, like is that how EMP works in Star Trek world?
I don't know that I've ever seen
Electromagnetic-
EMP in Star Trek world.
The answer is yes.
I have an answer.
You have an answer?
Okay, let's take a 10-second answer. Maya Mama, can you give us that answer in 10 seconds or less?
Yes, they've absolutely used electromagnetic pulses to shut down equipment when they have like equipment that is malfunctioning and trying to take over things. It is real. I don't know if it's real, but I know it's Star Trek real.
Space magic.
And not just in the Matrix franchise that the EMP stops all the things.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, ooh.
That's what that made me think of, and that's why I brought it up. Okay, so thank you all so much, and that was Marie Has Questions.
Yes, and if you are a newbie looking to catch up on all of the Star Trek Discovery insights from our Trek table, then we invite you to check out the Trek table episode deep dives. Our podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. And we invite you to do that deep dive with us. Catch up on season 4, hear some of our insights, and go there with us.
This brings us to our second Trek table question. So at the end of this episode, Tarka has fully betrayed everyone. Book was about to say, okay, let's take a week to reassess. But instead, Tarka was like, we're going to do my plan because I've got the ego the size of the DMA and we're going to do this. And it doesn't work. So now what? Now what, Tarka? Now what? What Tarka going to do?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
All right. Tarka just took a big action and it had a large consequence and it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. So now what? What do you think Tarka will do now? Let's start with you, Dela. What do you think Tarka's going to do? What are his moves?
I think that he is gonna double down and be defensive because he made a big mistake. And I would not be surprised if he somehow found a way to lock Book out of the ship and transport him away so that Tarka could go and do what he needs to do to get reunited with his friend or his love or whoever that is.
All right, Malika, I'm going to go to you next.
Absolutely. I think he's gonna double up on stupid and he's gonna cut and run. But I think he's gonna keep the spore drive in the ship and he's gonna ditch Book and maybe he'll probably like open up the channel so he could beam him back to his girl. And he's also a criminal, so he gonna cut and run. But he's not ready to stop.
Right, because his entire plan was, we're going to do this illegal thing, but it'll work. And then everyone will be like, you were right, we were wrong, we aren't going to punish you. That was a bad plan. Marie, what will Tarka do now? What are his options?
Well, yeah, I also think that a rogue person is always going to go rogue, and if he's not able to get not able to lock Book out of his own ship, then I think he'll he'll return back to whoever he still knows from the Emerald Chain, bring him back, bring back the bad.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's exciting. More okay. I'm hoping that happens because some Emerald Chain up in this business would be interesting. Maya Mama, I recognize that you want to give Turker Tickle. You don't want to give him any respect, right? And he has earned none of it. He's earned none of it. I am hoping that there's going to be some kind of accountability path, some kind of redemption moment. It's always kind of cheap. Like spoilers for Eternal, if you're a bad character and you do a bunch of bad things and then you do the big sacrifice that's just getting rid of yourself, but it doesn't actually result in better goodness for anybody,
Mhm.
I don't think that's a brave move. I sense that that's what Tarka's going to do. Tarka's going to do a big sacrifice and try to like have that give him a better story. Maya Mama, what do you think is going to happen with Tarka?
Okay,
Tinka.
so
Tank and the Bankers.
I think maybe we're giving Todd a hard time. I think he suffered a loss, and I think that he's suffering from some emotional cognition type of issues. He's just trying to get to his imaginary idea of what the Terran Empire is. He's going to be king of the Terrans, and I mean, although just an aside, I think we can all agree that Giorgio would have just destroyed him,
Ooh,
chewed
yeah.
him up, and spit him out.
Mhm.
But even if it means we need to give him a second chance, because I think that even if that means that he has this delusional belief about being right about everything, that nothing can go wrong as long as everyone listens to him. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He just needs some time and some additional people to use.
Wow.
And then everything will be fine, guys. Todd knows what he's doing.
And
He's
with
smart.
that deeply sarcastic, satirical response from Maya Mama, that brings us to a close of Trek Table question number 2.
Yes, yes. And if you are enjoying our satirical takes on Star Trek Discovery, if you're enjoying all of our insights, we want to remind you, don't forget to follow us. You can follow us on Instagram at Trek Table or on Twitter at Trek_Table.
Welcome to Discovery Design. We've seen some beautiful and amazing design elements in this episode of Discovery. So let's dish. Dayla, let's start with you. So we have that isolytic weapon at the opening of the episode. I just think it is gorgeous. We don't have an image, so I cooked one up. Can you walk us through this?
Yeah. I
Wow.
first of all, I just want to narrate for friends on the podcast. We'll share this in our episode notes. We'll put it on the Instagram. How about that? We're gonna put Maya Mama's original drawing of the isolinium reactor. It looks like, yeah, was he pouring? It was almost like he was pouring bath salts or like the lychee bubbles that pop in your mouth when you get boba. What are those? Like
Yeah.
that's what it makes me think of. And I think in a conversation we had, Claudia, it does definitely remind me of like Mission Impossible, like be careful, don't pour the thing. So the tech of this isolinium weapon I thought was really interesting. And I am concerned that they have broken the time jumping, space warping accords. There were temporal wars when Burnham first arrives into this future. Discovery as a ship was said it was illegal because it had jumped and it had used temporal technology, and isolytic weapons were banned. And now Tarka has not only done all this other stuff he just did, but using this isolytic weapon that Maya Mama has beautifully illustrated for us, Tarka has now also broke that temporal accord.
Oh, wow. So
So
yeah, there could be some really far-reaching scientific consequences. Awesome. Thank you. Now, Claudia, let's move on to you.
I'm actually gonna take a step back and repeat the one that you just did. It's always one of my favorite moments to the moment where they're like, we're putting the core into the bomb into it, like everybody don't breathe, everyone's holding your breath. Oh, so I love that scene. And I love the explosion. So when the ship was getting eaten by the like whatever Tarka's bad science solution was to protecting his ship, it made a full crack in that other ship. That was dramatic.
Most definitely. For me, I have to say, I really liked revisiting Saru's quarters, and I like the introduction of the holographic pillows, which were two different design elements from different Discovery designs combined into one. And I love how that goes all together. Now, Malika, is there a design element that just really resonated with you this episode?
So I'm gonna fixate on the energy, on the energy source, in a couple of different ways. Well, one, actually, that little drip picture you picked up. I also was, as a scientist in me, I was thinking, what is isolinium supposed to look like as an element? That one also stuck with me because I thought most elements are either, well, they're different size. I was like, it looked like it was like a glass thingy, and I said, but are they trying to say isolinium looks like glass, or is this a glass thing that's holding isolinium? And is it a liquid? Is it a solid? That one, that's my scientific brain was spinning with that one. But the number one thing that just blew me was the energy core. That the whole thing was to retrieve this energy core from the DMA outpost, and that he knew he had some technology that was going to allow him to find it once he blew the thing up, but he didn't check that technology to see exactly where it was located in the thing before he blew it up to confirm it was there. That element, that one blew me out. One job, he just had one job.
To just actually be a scientist.
Yeah,
Like I felt scientist, not like a great guesser.
Yeah, if he had technology that could scan the whole universe to find it after he blew the thing up, he didn't use that same technology to scan the thing before he blew up to be like, yeah, like it's there in the lower quadrant, and I'm gonna blow it up and then get it. And like, I just don't know,
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, it's like when you have like a roommate who like cleans the kitchen and then leaves it like a bigger mess than when it started, right? Like,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Great, Marie, we're to you. So now let's concentrate on just the visuals of the center of the DMA. I just it was so pretty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's so like minimal looking, and it actually reminds me a little bit of like some Eames designs, or like or when I first saw the like center of the DMA and this energy source and what it looked like, I was like, this reminds me of Contact, the mid-90s movie starring Jodie
Mm-hmm.
Foster and
Mm-hmm.
Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
and I was like, it reminds me of the device that Jodie Foster is in a little bit. I know that hers was like spherical, but like the way that they represented
It
it and how it
dropped
was like
it.
flying through space, and so it just got me really excited, and why I put it in my notes, and I wanted to talk about it.
I
But
love
did
it.
it
I
remind
love it.
anyone else of stuff that
Yeah.
that they've seen?
Yeah, I didn't think about that in Contact, but it really
Mhm.
does. The cage that she when the little girl and
Yeah.
it drops down and then she goes into that, and like that's brilliant.
Good to
That's
go. Good to go. This is all. If you can hear me, I'm still good to go.
Did you do shaky cam?
I'm still good to go. Good to
Oh, you were giving us your best Jodie Foster, and I'm here
Mhm.
for it.
Oh,
Thank
that
you.
was so
Thank you for
good.
that.
That
Thank
was
you.
so
I was.
good.
You couldn't see me grabbing my chair, and you know
Yeah.
how she's
No, I
dealing
can
with
see
the
the
force.
turbulence. The
Yes.
turbulence.
Yes. Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
I'm good to go. Good to go.
I appreciate that all 5 of us have
Oh,
seen that movie and have that
yes.
context.
I love that movie.
Hashtag
Mhm.
6 hours of static. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know. It might have been more. Okay, audience. What design elements would you or did you really love in this episode? Let us know in the chat. And that was Discovery Design.
Yes, and we are super excited to jump into one of the newest ways to hold Trek space. Let's go into fashion freestyle.
Fashion. Freestyle. Fashion. Freestyle.
Describing many outfits.
Fashion. Freestyle. Fashion.
Describing many
On
outfits.
track table.
Pretty good. Actually,
Thank you for
it
enjoying
gets
and
better.
dancing. Thank you for enjoying and dancing to the freestyle fashion music. In today's fashion freestyle on Trek Table, you will need to describe an outfit. Who knows what outfit we're going to put in front of you? Dayla, we are going to start with you. First image, describe this fashion.
All right, so here we go. Here we have Book and Tarka on the bridge of Book ship. Book has got that really cool polka dot leather. I'm a Quajanian empath trying to do goodness, and I still have my sacred locket that contains not only the blood of my family but also the root of my planet. And then here's Tarka on the side, like going a little bit extra, adding a jacket on top of his look. It looks like he has some kind of t-shirt on, but I just want to say Book's leather look here almost looks like he's got a vest on, so it's making me want to be the empath with a faux leather polka dot black vesty kind of look and my ancestral necklace.
Fabulous. Now we're coming to our next image. Go ahead and put that on screen. I will take the description on. Ooh, okay. Here we are with Commander Nan sitting next to a gorgeous looking Michael Burnham, all captainy in her seat with that jacket and those pants. Now here we have Commander Nan. She's in a sleek black number, full body number. It's missing the scant. I'm looking and I don't see the scant anymore. Was it a skirt? Was it a scant? It was like a pants skirt. Gersha, I'm kind of sad. We were really standing the scant. So goodbye, scant, but welcome back, Non, with your new breathers. They're less fashionable, but they make more sense. Less vulnerable. And now, let's go to our next freestyle image. Freestyle image is going to be to you, Malika. Go ahead and describe this fashion look.
Okay, this seems to be a fresh take on the usual Starfleet uniform. It's not red, it's not blue, it's teal. Is it a seasonal thing? Is it a year-round thing? I don't know, but still stylish and yet functional. Here we have an Oculus sporting this new look, and apparently, I'm gonna guess critical design element is probably a zipper in the back, because this is not a pullover, people. No way you're getting this over your head.
Yo, beam it onto the body. Just beam it right on. Hey, Marie, we're going to give you the next image. It is to you. Describe that fashion. Freestyle.
Oh my gosh, so much fashion. We have 3 covers of Out Magazine with Mary Weissman, Blue Del Barrio, and Ian Alexander, and Anthony Rapp. Mary Weissman looking with a rose-colored glasses and natural hair that is up in a big poof. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Looking super fierce, and I think like nothing else on other than jewelry. And then for Ian and Blue, we have pleather jackets that are looking very sleek, very Matrix a resurrection with sharp hairlines, dark eye makeup, just like staring down the customer looking at this cover of the magazine. And then we have robotic Anthony Rapp looking like straight out of the 80s with a silver jacket, a long trench jacket, and glasses in a very futuristic robotic pose.
Yes, that back arch Anthony Rapp. You're gonna pull a muscle. Hey, Maya Mama, the next fashion look is to you. Freestyle. Describe that fashion. Describe these looks. Go.
Ooh, we have Emily. Is this Coots? Is that how
Mm-hmm.
you would pronounce her name? Emily Coots. Wilson Cruz. Tig Notaro. Look at Tig just chilling in that awesome. It's that blazer has a bunch of, it has writing on it and art.
Ooh.
It's sort of drawn on it. We can't exactly see it on that, but I have seen a zoomed up look of that. We have Wilson Cruz in what I assume is his everyday look. It would have been nice for him to dress up, but you know what? He's still looking good, and I love it. Emily Coots, who is vibing some Olympic gold looks for me, but also just truly lovely and ethereal. I am a big fan of these, and if I might give some advice to Wilson Cruz, that would be don't ever wear a shirt unless someone's paying you to.
Mhm.
And that was the description of our many outfits this week. Well done with your fashion freestyles.
Next week, join us when we welcome Lulu Matute and Anupama Jan as we discuss Star Trek Discovery Episode 10, the penultimate season. Don't miss it.
All right, and welcome to the thematic section of the Trek Table today. We've been digging into Trek Table episode number 42. We've been talking about this episode, Rubicon. And now we're going to take a chance to kind of braid everything together. We've been talking about it in all of these different segments, whether it's Marie Has Questions, our disco recap, fashion freestyle, disco design, and of course, all the Trek Table questions we've been talking about. So as I see this episode, one of the things that struck me from the jump was just we're on this season arc trajectory about the complicated relationships of all of our friends in the universe at this time. And as we're seeing Book and Tarka have to continue to try and meet their goal, it's very clear that Burnham and Discovery and the rest of Starfleet is trying to stop them. And so it just brings up all of these complicated relationships. It felt like in the sharing, Admiral Vance was acknowledging the complication, and it almost felt like maybe a connection to people was a weakness. So I just want to invite a couple of us to respond to this conversation about these complicated relationships. What are you seeing in this episode? At one point, Vance even said Saru is even compromised because he didn't say compromised, but Saru is also connected to Book, so Mr. Saru could not be that counter check that Vance ended up sending Non to do. So I just want to ask, let's talk a little bit about these complicated relationships this week. Maya Mama, you've been sharing a lot today. I want to invite you to jump in on this topic. What do you think?
Yeah, I gotta say, knowing someone makes you vulnerable. That's really, that's what the Federation is about. That's what the Federation does, is that they open themselves, and it does create some vulnerability, but that's how you create trust. You can't have trust without that openness, and that's That's just how the Federation is supposed to work. Now we see Torkelson, who is completely unwilling to open himself up to
Mhm.
anyone, which means he can't actually really fully work with someone. And I just want to say,
Mhm.
like, just imagine if he actually was able to connect with a person,
Mm.
and just how much better and bigger
Mhm.
and what he could produce. Saru has complicated feelings, I think, about race
Mm.
when it comes
Mm.
to a relationship with President Tarina. That's what I was really
Ooh,
feeling about it. You know, I was really
yeah.
Mhm.
vibing some, like, I'm not really sure, like, I really, really like you, but you are a Vulcan,
Oh.
because he's from the past. You know, back in
Mhm.
his day, they just didn't do things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
That's all I got.
Mhm.
Nice.
I love it. Claudia, your thoughts on complicated relationships in this episode?
Well, it feels like every other show I watch, it gives me this plot point, gives me this story beat.
Mm.
Emotional vulnerability will make you so you can't make good decisions. And then it gives you a storyline that proves that true. This is why I love Discovery. Discovery gives me storylines that are super fresh. Like
Mhm.
this was a very tense episode. And it was tense because you had two people who were like fighting each other. They knew each other really well. Like they each knew each other's moves so well that they could guess what the next move was going to be. They could interpret it really well. And
Mhm.
neither of them actually wanted to hurt the other person. And it turns out that when you have two people having a battle, having a conflict, where neither of them actually wants there to be harm, it's so much more interesting than when you have these black and white villains that are just so I go, oh, give me more stories where people are deeply connected and are negotiating that. I'm here for it.
Mhm. I appreciate that riff because as I'm hearing that, I'm thinking about the ways in which these connections and like literally book as a empath, as a Kwajanian, is able to connect at a physical level. I mean, I know when we're looking at the fashion, he finally did start to wear his Kwejan necklace, that ceremony rite of passage that he supported his nephew going through. So just this idea of connection, and I think it just felt serendipitous as a transition to say, Malika, as we were getting ready to welcome you onto today's episode, I just thought it was super amazing and perfect that you study the ways in which organic matter can actually connect and share a charge or share a connection. And so I'm just wondering about, for you as a scientist, for you as a Trek fan, like how are you seeing this these complicated relationship, and is this idea of organic semiconductors a helpful metaphor in this moment as we think about it?
Well, absolutely. It's actually kind of fascinating because, I mean, we always think about the material side, like I focused on, but then now you have this advanced species and we have these empaths, these people who can connect to other species. And now in this era, this version of Star Trek, you have people who can actually connect physically, mentally to inanimate objects. The ship is a living thing through, and now and we have people who can actually connect to it, mentally empower it and stuff. And it's next level. I mean, for someone who works in the space, that would be the dream if we could actually figure out how to do that. And it
Mhm.
probably would take a combination of the right tech, but the right people. I don't think everyone would have to be able to do it. That's like also some tenets of sci-fi, right? That some people have the
Mhm.
right brain synergy or right brain energy to make that work. But yeah, it's some next level stuff. I thought, oh, well, wouldn't that be good if we could actually do some of those things? So
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. I love it. Marie, your thoughts on complicated relationships, organic semiconductors?
Oh, yes, I have tons to say about organic semi. No, um, uh, yeah, I mean, complicated relationships are exactly that. Like they're complex, and it's not, binary. It's not. It just has so many layers, and that is, yeah. And I agree with Claudia about how it's really awesome to see explored in this show because they are giving each other so many chances. They don't want to hurt each other, but they both have their missions that are very much in conflict. It was great to have that tension of having Non there to make this final decision, and for Burnham to come up with this kind of like last minute solution so that there's a compromise on both ends. That's what the show is about. and it's great to see that modeled.
Yeah, and I'll just say I felt like that got modeled in that final moment where Burnham is in the shuttlecraft and she has flown all the way to book ship. And I'm just curious for our generational Trek fam, is that the first time we've ever seen that kind of shuttlecraft to viewer? I've never seen in Star Trek two ships meet like that shot we got between. That feels like a Star Wars. I'm used to in a Star Wars context seeing ships near each other, looking at each other. It's part of the joke at a certain point in some of the Star Wars world. But it felt like for me, this was the first time I saw this connect, like literally like what you all were just saying. We're watching as this episode's building, and we get to this moment where the producers, the writers show us everything is peeling away. It's just like the episode where Burnham and finally had the private communication bubble. So I'm just honoring that we're getting these new kinds of ways to have intimacy and connection in front of other people as people try to work it out.
I don't think that they generally recognize windows except as looking out at the stars, or like, what's that? Like when there's an anomaly in space. But they generally, I don't think that they really do the window thing, which I think is yeah, it was really interesting. I really loved it. It was such a beautiful shot.
Yeah, and I'm using that as this transition to this final topic in Thematix, which is, you know, we're talking about these complicated relationships, but what I also got out of this episode, I'm curious about folks' thought, is like, but we also got the healing part of connection, or the benefit part of it. Wasn't just we're working out what are the conflicts because we're connected, but here's Saru connecting and reaching out to Tarina. Here are ways that characters were reaching out in this episode. So I'm going to come to you, Claudia, and ask, was there elements of this connection part of the episode that weren't just the bad part of I'm worried about you not fulfilling this expectation, but here are all the benefits of connection?
Well, this was definitely an episode that had a lot of themes of connection in it. And Discovery, I feel like it's always been a show that's been about honestly reflecting on trauma, generational trauma, the trauma of war, and then allowing us to actually experience the healing rhythms. That's partially because Star Trek Discovery is not episodic, so it allows us to actually live through the entire story, and have all of those impacts, and that gives us the ability to really get invested in Commander Nan's journey. And I was so curious about what happened with her attempt to return back to her family. What it would be like to try and return to a planet that had moved on by hundreds and hundreds of years. I really love that they have Culber as somebody who can give good advice, but it's also beautiful that people have other folks that they can reach out to. Like Saru didn't reach out to the formal person that's there to help him. Saru reached out to a friend, and I think that's beautiful as well.
I love it. And one of the things that I was struck by at this episode was Nan saying that Barzans are duty first. And so there was almost a very stark decision. There's no decision but duty first. So for Nan to also come out of this episode and talk about a middle ground, I thought was really, really powerful. Malika, I'm going to toss to you. Thoughts about the way these connections you're seeing in this episode?
One thing that jumped out at me when we were talking about the window, actually thinking about it, are we just not going to acknowledge that Homegirl pulled a classic Black woman drive-by on her ex-man? Like, like you didn't return my calls, you ain't answering my calls, you're not returning my texts. I'm gonna roll up. And I was just sitting there, like the inner Black woman in me was like, yes, girl, roll up and see what's going on. So I definitely appreciated that. I am really also curious to learn more about this other thing that's going on with Saru, because he's a complicated kind of guy, and his, like you guys mentioned, his culture, he's coming from a different era, and he's been just stoic throughout all of this, and now here is him taking care of his needs, and and somebody's meeting him halfway saying, I can help you with the rest of your needs, let's have this meal, and he's like getting all scared. So I'm really curious to see if he can actually find a way to lean into that part of himself. I mean, to me, that was like the Starfleet of Cleveland sliding into somebody's DMs, right? I mean, like,
yes,
basically. So I'm really curious to see what happens next. I enjoyed it.
Mhm. I love that. That is clippable. Saru calling Tarina is slipping into her DMs. Get that? Yes, yes. I love it. My mama, your thoughts on connection?
Well, I think that a lot of a lot of this was like a fear of failure, both with Saru and with Non. Is that, you know, if Saru doesn't doesn't do this right, then it could be an international or an intergalactic incident, and then there'll be war because he didn't have a good date. I mean, it felt like these were the spiraling things that were going through his mind. And with Non being, it can either be one or the other. I just really felt like, you know, there was some her having to sit with discomfort, sit with failure, with uncertainty. She seemed to refuse that those were things that actually existed. And I think that validation was like an additional thing that was put upon for both of them. You know,
Mhm.
Tarina giving validation to Saru for having feelings, and Michael coming and taking Non aside and acknowledging and validating her very real fear about what would happen to the crew, what would happen to the remainder of space.
Awesome. And I'm sure there are so many more thoughts. Friends in the chat, I'm excited that we're going to be chatting with you about this. We're curious your thoughts about connection and complicated relationships and organic semiconductors in this episode. That was our thematics for Star Trek Discovery episode season 4, episode 9, Rubicon.
And as we head into our final Trek table question number 3, we want you to give a lot of thought to Madam President of Navarre. She suggests taking a walk or having a meal with your friend to clear your mind. What do you do to restore your inner balance?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
Welcome back. For those who can see the visual image, that is Madam President of Navarre, Tarina, taking a walk or having a meal with a friend to clear your mind is something she suggests to Saru to help Saru find balance. I'm asking the rest of our Trek table participants and also those of you in the chat, what do you do to restore inner balance? I know that one of the things that I have been doing and loving during this pandemic is I have gotten into gardening so hardcore. My previous lifestyle had me flying all over the country and I could not keep a plant alive. But I'm locked in, I'm here, and I have just been growing life. It's been amazing, giving me so much joy. How about you, Maya Mama? What do you do to restore inner balance?
Oh, I watch or listen to true crime. I play video games. I listen to silly, fun fiction. Oftentimes, as Star Trek novelizations, I like to eat. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I
Okay.
also like to sleep. Oh, also watching these
Ooh!
same shows over and over again.
Mhm.
Star Trek.
I want to just do a shout out for naps, 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 naps all day long. Nap Ministry. Hey, Dayla,
Mhm.
what do you do to restore inner balance?
Yeah, I would say I'm on the nap ministry kick right now. I'm trying to be in that wisdom. But my when President Trina said walking, I realized yeah, recently I had fallen out of walking and I was like, "Oh, I can't do it." But I realized my body has the memory and if I just start walking for 5 minutes, it actually reconnects me and recenters me. So walking, definitely going karaoke and singing my lungs out and just, giving it all. And
Yes.
the last thing is something that Marie and I used to go do, which was we would, when we'd open a show, we'd go and
Yep.
hit the batting cages and just hit balls really
Ooh.
hard.
Yeah. And all slow pitch, so like,
Slow
home
pitch.
runs as often as we can.
That sounds like fun.
Mhm.
Marie, what else have you done besides hitting balls with a bat? What else have you done to restore your inner balance?
I am a dinner with friends centering person. And so I love just getting to share a meal, good food, good drink, good conversation, catching up. Gardening has also been really great, and actually after this, I am heading to the Theodore Payne Foundation because they're having a winter plant sale. They are a foundation in California that does like native plants, and I'm so excited. Like I'm so excited, but yes.
Oh, that's so marvelous. Malika, what do you do to restore inner balance?
I do a few things. I've really been trying to be consistent with working out, and so I do. I'm one of those Peloton people, so I drink the Kool-Aid. But it's just convenient having it in your house, and nobody else's sweat is on it, so it's nice. So I've been using that. I've been using that heavily, and just trying to be consistent. Just even finding just a few minutes a day to just get moving. It was so important, especially with during the pandemic when we weren't getting our daily just steps just from moving from here to there. So I was trying to be consistent now that the world's opened back up. And my secret sauce is jigsaw puzzles. I love to do jigsaw puzzles, and I'll spend a whole evening. I'll kick off my weekend and just sit down and
Ooh.
crack one open. I'll do a whole 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle in one sitting. Just
Oh, come on
yeah,
with it. That
something
is
to
so
just
much
yeah.
fun.
Chaos, creating order from chaos is just very centering, and you feel like you accomplished something, and it also just blanks my mind. So that's one of my secret zen activities, and naps, brunch, all the other things work too.
Mhm.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm just so pleased that we've been able to shout out Trissa Hersey's nap ministry like 3 times in this conversation. Just get your
Absolutely.
rest on. Get your rest on, people. Rest and reclaim yourself. Also, eat some delicious food, work out, take a walk, hit some hit some balls with a bat. These are all beautiful suggestions. I'm so jealous that you're buying plants. That sounds like so much joy. This has been a beautiful reflection on ways we can find our inner balance, and that brings us to the end of our Trek Table questions for this season 4, episode 9, Rubicon.
Hey, hey, if you are enjoying Trek Table, why not hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube? Ring that bell and receive notifications on new Trek Table content.
We here at the Trek Table strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color, content creators, world builders, community shapers. And we want to amplify and highlight some of that work. Today, Claudia is going to help share something with us.
Suzanne Kite, aka Kite, is an Oglala Lakota performance artist, visual artist, and composer. Her performances, compositions, sculptures, and sound installations showcase the use of experimentation in new media and digital technologies that touch on issues such as non human and human intelligence, the ethics of extractive technologies, and software design. Kite will take virtual attendees on a remote roving tour and performance across 3 of her studio spaces in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Afterwards, participants will have an opportunity to ask questions and engage in a remote conversation with the artist. It sounds so cool. More info at visionsandvoices.usc.edu.
Thank you. And if you have a woman of color creator that you want to help us amplify and share information about, please let us know. And that was our signal boost for Trek Table episode number 42. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's episode 42 of the Trek Table. We've had a robust, special, amazing episode. And as we do every single week, we like to close with some of our final thoughts. Maya Mama, can I ask you to go first? What are your final thoughts on Rubicon?
I think that this episode is really the culmination of a lot of things that have been happening in our past episodes, but we finally got to see who Turd is, like as an actual person. We get to see that he has no real loyalties, and we get to see his narcissistic and sociopathic things. There were no surprises here, but at the same time, I was a little crushed at the end of this episode because it didn't work. All of the betrayal and all of this subterfuge and getting the isolinium and building the bomb and stealing everything, it didn't even matter, and that was a little crushing. So I'm looking forward to next week because I need a little bit more. I need a little
Thank you, Maya Mama. Marie Ren, I'm going to come to you. Your final thoughts.
I definitely felt some or a lot actually of anxiety while watching this episode. There was a lot of life on the line, and the consequences of that felt very um yeah, it was just very visceral, and I felt it physically in my body while while watching it. And so I am glad that we were able to kind of explore what we were talking about with the complicated relationships and how we relate to each other, how we understand each other, and how we can work together. It is unfortunate that someone was able to kind of take advantage of a moment of pause after some kind of collaboration compromise to just take whatever action they felt like was necessary, and also for a very selfish purpose. I'm a little worried, a lot worried.
I'll go next, and I just want to share. I have a couple of things in my. I have like three little bullets in my final thoughts. Um, One, I just want to say I every week wait to hear Captain Michael Burnham say, "Drop it on my mark." I just want to hear her all the time say, "Drop it on my mark, drop it on my mark." So I was very satisfied this week in the episode. And I think it's also just enjoying her captaincy and her let's fly, like all the things about Burnham as a captain. I really am appreciating her actualizing and being and letting us see as she's dealing with these complicated relationships, solving these ongoing challenges. The last thing I'm gonna say, I had a couple more things, but I'm really fascinated that Tarka reads to me like a ally in the movement who comes at a moment and says to Book, "I am aligned with you. I believe you. I am going to do what you want to do. We are aligned, and everything we're doing right now, the means justify the end. Get us to the end." And what I want to say is, first of all, I wish Book had just locked the controls on his ship so that could not have been let go.
Thank you.
But I see why he was distracted, because he at a certain level had tried to set these boundaries with this ally, and that ally kept breaking them. So it reminds me in this final moment in our complicated relationships, how do we each set these boundaries so that when someone shows us who they truly are, we can believe them and create a boundary to protect ourselves from them. And that is my final thought on this episode. So
Ooh.
I just
Mhm.
all the things. All right. Malika, you've been our guest today. Your final thought on this episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, it was a lot for me to unpack in terms of the theme of difficult relationships. Firstly, because actually one of the most difficult relationships I had in my life was when I was a graduate student with my PhD advisor. And we had a very strained relationship and didn't see eye to eye. And at some points, I even felt like he threw me underneath the bus, and his name was Tarka. So this was so this was very ironic. It was so it was very ironic. It was very ironic to see that character in the play out this way. The other thing that just resonated with me is, as a boss chick and looking at Michael as a boss chick, it is hard for us to meet men and to find men who are ready and capable to love on us the way we need to be loved. And so she had that for a moment. And then, this whole thing happens and he betrays her trust and he does this very despicable thing. And we often find ourselves as, in relationships with egg on our face. You fall in love with somebody who does some really messed up stuff, and everybody who knows you is like, how could you date that person? Didn't you know? But the reality is these things are decoupled. You can fall in love with an aspect or an element of a person, and that's okay. And they can have this other side thing going on that you didn't know about or didn't anticipate. And it's complicated. You still love them and you're disappointed that they did this. And but it is like that. And so watching that thing play out, it's just like, yeah, he had a good heart and he was a good person, but he did a lot of wrong things, for what he believed to be the right reason. And it's disappointing and heartbreaking. And so, I I hope she find it's got to be difficult dating when you Starfleet, but I hope it works out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Malika, for all of that. Yes, all those things. And our final thoughts today, I want to pass it back to Claudia. Claudia, your final thoughts on this Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 9.
Oh, well, I was just reflecting on Malika. It's reflections on dating. Dating in Star Trek must be hard. I'm thinking about Deep Space Nine when the captain was dating somebody who made some choices that were against the law, against the rules. She was working for the Maquis. I actually
Hmm.
supported all of her choices, and I was glad. I mean, I didn't really love how she kind of went into why she just went to jail. Like that was like a good move. I was like, I don't know if I like that as a story beat, but I
Mhm.
like that they were able to come back together as a couple after that.
Yeah.
I guess my final thoughts on this episode are I not only want for Book and Michael to be able to make it work, but I want the entire universe to be able to make it work because Tarka just did a violent
Hmm.
move that will have huge repercussions. Like those folks were hurting everybody with their mining operations, but it's kind of hard to have to come in righteous from the group that was harmed to come in righteous when you just did something really foul. Those are
Mhm.
my final thoughts.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yes, and audience, friends in the chat, folks listening to us on the podcast, we're curious what your final thoughts are on this episode. If you're listening on the podcast, you could tweet us at Trek_table or maybe find us on Instagram. If you are in this chat, we want to know what are you thinking at the end of this episode? So many juicy things. And those were our final thoughts on Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 9, Rubicon.
Please join us on February 26th, 2022 to 2622 when we will be talking about Season 4, Episode 10 of Star Trek Discovery. It will be the penultimate episode for this Season 4. We can't wait to see the episodes on Paramount Plus.
Yes, and we want to say thank you all for joining us today at the Trek Table. We want to remind you get first look at the Trek Table questions, inside scoops, and more when you sign up for our mailing list at trektable.com.
Find Trek Table Podcasts on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to this Trek Table channel so you can get more Trek Table into your algorithms.
Also, like and subscribe to us on Instagram at Trek Table and on Twitter at Trek_table.
Yes, and finally, I'd like to say thank you so much to this Trek Table assembled. Thank you to all of you in the chat with us today. Thank you for holding down this ritual. I want to say thanks to Claudia Alick, thanks to Maia Mills Low, thanks to Marie Reine-Velez, and special thanks to our special guest, Dr. Malika Jeffries-EL. Thank you for being our first woman of color scientist on this show. We're so excited. Thank you all for sharing your insights and unique thoughts with us today, and thanks to everybody who's joined us. As we close out this ritual, I'm just going to go back and say at the top of this show, we were holding Trek Space for folks like Book, who had the best of intentions and all the reasons, but still made a mistake, and holding space for all that accountability. We were holding space for trusting in friends to check yourself before you wreck yourself. For that moment when you forget what you were doing, it happens to everyone, or it's time travel. We're holding Trek Space for making that first move and for all the color girls who entered the academy and were told they weren't enough. Trek Table executive producers are Alison De La Cruz and Liz Jadiwala. Production coordinator Brandon Chang. Our OBS operator and programmer Ariana Michelle. Our social media manager and chat moderator Isil Borlasa. And our social media associate Jimena Martinez.
Trek Table was brought to you in part by Outside In Theater. For more information about Outside In Theater, go to outsideintheater.org or their YouTube channel. The link is below in our show description or on their Twitch channel at twitch.com/outsideintheater.
Thanks to Dr. Deborah Carter, Doc Zulu, and Nancy Yap, and our partners at Visual Communications.
Yes, and we want to say so much love and gratitude to all of our partners, our content partners at Calling Up Justice.
Trek Table is a service mark of De La Projects, LLC.
All right, so thank you all so much for joining us at this Trek Table. I want to close this ritual for today by inviting folks to ground yourself one more time. And I'm going to go ahead and invite you to take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as we have said, we hope that you will join us next Sunday, February 26, 2022, as we dive deep into the penultimate episode of this season 4, Star Trek Discovery, episode 10. We'll meet you back here at 4 o'clock at the Trek Table on YouTube. We'll be holding Trek space for you until then. Everybody have a great week. Thanks so much.